faith had overcome his patriotism. Follow-up investigations yielded no clues, however, as his trail was lost on the Great Plains. In the end, the police could only accuse Killian of treason and claim that he hired Sarkaz mercenaries to attack the archaeologists and plunder the statue. An unresolved case. 2 months later, Killian unexpectedly reappeared on the Victorian border, covered in grievous wounds and on the verge of collapse. He was found muttering nonsense to himself, such as, "The statue does not exist, faith does not exist, the holy city does not exist," among other things. The doctor who arrived on the scene simply shook his head, and Killian spent the last moments of his life undergoing interrogation by 2 police officers. Upon seeing the officers, it was as though he had become another man, slowly sitting up straight and muttering on the topics of war, Originium, and Victoria. As the officers wrote their report afterwards, they realized that Killian had not spoken any new thoughts during his interrogation. They were all statements he had used years before to shield the infected he knew from interrogations, repeated once more. That's... Okay, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna read a bit more of this in depth, and we're gonna come back to this, because there's a lot to dissect here. I'm wondering if this also relates to, what Anduin found. It's interesting here Calcit's notes on the betrayal here. In fact, the history of Laterano also began with an excavation and a betrayal. Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! The history of Laterano began with an excavation and betrayal because the Sarkaz, the Tikaz went to the Silver Mounts, right? Whatever the fuck those are, which I believe will be mentioned in this book later, but I don't actually know. The Tikaz went to the Silver Mounts, and that's what we saw in the Mass's Travels, when we saw the first saint and the cannibalism and the desire for survival and the fact that the law reacted to the desire for survival. The Victorians were eager to excavate things from the land that could bring wealth and power, originium, artifacts, and such. In ancient times, the desperate Tikaz had also sought power from within the earth that could change their fate. Unfortunately, at that time, the Tikaz were not yet able to harness such. Many Tikaz perished at the excavation site, and even today, the most radical human experiments in Colombia likely pale in comparison to the horrors of that time. The Great Excavation was both an act of self-preservation and self-destruction. The first Sancta fled the excavation in droves. At first, the Sancta defection did not cause any profound impact, but as the Tikaz scattered across the land, while the Sancta settled peacefully and prospered, the seeds of hatred took root and began to grow. In present-day Casdell, acts of betrayal are common, and yesterday's comrades may be today's enemies. But in the eyes of the Sarkaz, refusing to share in their profound suffering is the true betrayal that engenders hatred. Yeah, Calcit meant yeah. But yeah, that's really interesting, that idea of the original betrayal, and the idea of, in the eyes of the Sarkaz, refusing to share in their profound suffering is the true betrayal that engenders hatred. So that being the origin of the, or that being one of the origins of the rift between the Sancta and the Sarkaz, and again, the ideas in Babel of Teresa and trying to break the cycle of violence, and the cycle of violence and suffering that the Sarkaz, were held by, that also deeply, I think, affects that idea of the Sancta being the original betrayal, because they had the ability to escape that cycle, and they did so by themselves without assisting the Sarkaz. And the idea of Teresa attempting to create Babel to escape that cycle, and the suffering there, and the fact of all those Sarkaz who did not necessarily align with that also probably culturally deeply affected the perception of Babel. Also, this is interesting too. The government of Laterano has never acknowledged the existence of this statue. As for the doubts and suspicions of the people, this ancient adage is the only silent response. Life is matter shaped by order, yet among the living, devils are closest to death. At their advent, the heavens themselves brood black, heralding the first catastrophe upon us. Light sears their flesh, order pierces their skin. The law watches over Laterano, and in turn, the Sancta are people of order. Thus, of all the races, 'tis devils who most hate the Sancta of Laterano. If the people of order abandon that order, their crimes are unforgivable. They fall from the grace of the law, adorned with a devil's horns and tail. These mark them as enemies of order, a brand they shall bear till their deaths. So this one, at their advent, so this idea of the TCAS and the Originium and Catastrophe, but then what we saw in the Masses Travels, light sears their flesh, order pierces their skin with the awakening of the cube and the cannibalism of the first saint. The law watches over Laterano, and in turn the Sancta are people of order. Thus, of all the races, 'tis devils who most hate the Sancta of Laterano. Then we have another Cal note. The Sancta were born the very moment when the law came into being. They gained a new sense of identity well before any physiological differences became apparent. When they recovered from the intense dizziness, the first Sancta felt like newborn children. Amidst the low, humming sound, they touched and embraced one another, sharing a new understanding. From that point on, the TCAS seemed like a foreign other, and their solemn mission of war as nothing appeared... From that point on, the TCAS seemed like a foreign other, and their solemn mission of war as nothing appeared more than a fleeting lie. Solemn mission of war as nothing appeared more than a fleeting lie. In the eyes of the TCAS, the Sancta betrayed their entire race, but the first Sancta were simply unwilling to be enslaved by the Outbloods. Today, both sides' grievances have been forgotten, and almost no one remembers the origins of the conflict. The Sarkas continue to nurture their hatred with the blood of the Sancta, while the Sancta portrayal of the Sarkas only deepens prejudice among the people. That's also particularly interesting when we've talked about before about the idea of empathy, and the idea of empathy between a group of people fosters the idea of the in-group versus the out-group. And the idea that the empathy actually makes the Sancta less empathetic because it enforces the idea of the in-group and the out-group. Humans are already prone to the idea of having us versus them because of how we've evolved, like, societally, and because of evolution and because of the way society works. But the idea of understanding specific people while having a level of understanding that isn't shared with other people, like, reinforces that idea to the max. And so that idea of how, like, when the Sancta, when those TCAS who encountered the law gained that connection, the fact that the other TCAS became so other to them, the fact that the empathy between them reinforced that otherness in that group is so fascinating. Yeah. It's just, it very much is that cycle of, like, it's the us versus them is so evident. Increases the rift through inability to communicate. Yes, exactly. You have geography. Oh, part of the thing is it's got a tropical monsoon climate, enjoying high temperatures year-round and 2 distinct seasons, one dry and one rainy. These are perfect conditions for sugar crops. Yeah, so that explains. Yeah. Lateran firearms, Martian floods. The fertile soil is another major source of Laterano's long-lived prosperity. Economy. Free trade hub. Oh, so economically they're a trade hub. That explains it. Landon Monastery, that's where Arketo is from. The system milk bread I have for breakfast each morning is crafted by one such monastery, renowned for its time-honored reputation. But yeah, so trade, geographic, wheat, cash crops, sugar, and then the sugar is sold to the nations surrounding Laterano. Monasteries independently process them. Yes, and most gunsmiths of Laterano are proficient in the design and manufacture of precision originium components. Specialized processing and electronics manufacturing are Laterano's most prominent industries, which have granted the nation extremely high intercity net penetration. Oh, intercity net penetration is because they don't have a global internet because of the lack of communication systems that are able to be established due to catastrophes and the danger of the wastelands, which is another reason why the Pioneer program in Colombia is so important, because it allows more communication networks to be built if the land is more settled. And so, however, Laterano's like high technology abilities is the reason why Exusii mentions Lemuel discusses how she remember when she talks about her college and her schooling, she focused on intercity net and security. And so within various countries, they do have like an internet of sorts. It's just not very connected between countries and various regions. So there's good intercity net, but there's bad international net. Now the law and the beliefs are a big thing to unpack, so we will unpack that later. He posts a letter from an author to a Lateran publishing house. Within the letter, the author talks about the difficulty of choosing a title for their new cookbook and asks the editors to help decide one. We will read through more of that later. They empathize with each other as with... Hold on. Let me look at the Calcit note here. There's a common Lateran proverb. 2 halos can solve any dispute. Whether a leak in the air conditioning, a scratch in a car, or an inadvertent detonation... or an inadvertent detonation of personal property, it seems both parties need only meet and chat with another to diffuse the conflict. In truth, it is also rather common for both parties to hit it off in conversation, leaving the damaged item forgotten by the side. However, I will say that I always have some misgivings about Sancta Empathy. While admittedly the Laterans live in peace and harmony, it is hard for me to imagine all of them happy at all times. Not even the Holy City can boast a complete lack of negative emotions such as dismay, sorrow, or anger within its walls. If a Sancta perceives such an emotion keenly, would this negative emotion not have an equally negative influence on the receiver? It is also particularly interesting, the discussion about empathy and values and the thing of hitting it off, because one of the things that we've spoken about in Hortus, post-Hortus, with the notes that are released on Twitter and such, was talking about the Irari, or Sancta who have spent a long time living outside of Laterano. Those Sancta those Sancta have difficulty communicating via empathy, despite the fact that their empathy link is not weakened. And the reason for that is because of the thing of empathy as a language. While our moods, all of our emotions, right, our emotions and our understanding each other are founded on, assumptions based on our culture, our language, and our understanding of the other situation. Part of the reason why Sancta Empathy works so well within the area of Laterano is because they are able to live in such a cohesive, peaceful, and, consistent. They all have a very similar standard of living. But one of the things about the Ararai, that this is part speculation, part interpretation, and part text, is that the fact that they have such difficulty is that they have been living outside of Laterano for such a long time, so that they are not approaching each other from the same perspective, from the same life experience, from the same level of prosperity and whatnot. And that discrepancy causes a great deal of difference in the way people interpret emotions. So the Ararai are considered, like, not a disease, but a disorder in various sancta, who have spent a great deal of time in communities outside of Laterano or communities outside of communicating with other sancta, because they are unable to understand the typical Lateran sancta at the same degree that other Lateran sancta can. And my argument, the textual bit is that Irare is a disorder experienced by those sancta who've lived outside of Laterano or outside of a community of other sancta, where they are where their empathy link is still as strong as it was originally, but they are unable to interpret or understand the emotions they access through the empathy link to the same degree that Lateran sancta can. And my interpretation of that is because emotions are not something that is inherent, or emotions and the way that we interpret emotions is not something like that is universally inherent to everyone. Our emotions and that interpretation depends both on the emotions themselves, our individual self, and our environment, our culture, and our situation that we are living in. And so it is not necessary, like, it is again a fault of the sancta in that they're a fault of the sancta and their insular community that they believe empathy is the only thing, that empathy is a perfect understanding. No, it is not empathy that grants them the perfect understanding and ability to get along. It is the fact they live in this single, prosperous, unified district where everyone has a very similar experience and is able to understand. But when any variety is introduced to that, that is what causes the difference in understanding and the lack of that difficulty. And that is also why people like Executor, who even though they live within Lateran City and have a similar experience, his experience of empathy, or rather his lack thereof, causes him to have such a vitally different experience from the regular Lateran people. And that is another reason why Lateran supremacy is such a strong thing, because that insular community is able to say is in this understanding of each other. They say, we are the best, we can clearly understand each other, but the reason why is because they simply have no experience of other experiences. Yeah, very consistent. Stronger divergences in experiences takes more in-depth communication. That's a beautiful way of putting it, Wendy. Thank you very much. Change, different, scary, bad. Also that. But yeah, exactly. It is not empathy. It's not empathy that keeps Laterano as consistent, as perfect, as paradise as it is. What it is a lack of diverse experiences. Alright, what's Kaldsit's comment on this? Many people who have a basic understanding of empathy often develop this unnecessary worry. In fact, since the Sancta are able to keenly sense emotions, they naturally know how to manage them. Turning empathy into sympathy and fostering mutual understanding through shared emotions are instinctive tendencies of the Sancta. I do wonder how much that also originates from PCS, because considering how much Kaltsit knows and what we learned about PCS from Priestess and how that was originally a precursor invention in order to allow teams of people such as scientists to assimilate their knowledge together and work in that regard, I wonder if that is a function of PCS in that instinctive understanding of emotion and ability to interface through it. Alright, we have another Kaltsit discussion thing here. Empathy is not as mysterious or elusive as many people imagine. The mangler beasts know how to gauge the emotions of their companions. A young mangler beast determines when it can get food from its pack mother's mouth by reading her expressions. As social animals, humans share similar instincts. When interacting with others, we also try to feel their emotions. Unfortunately, it takes quite a bit of effort to do that well and precisely. However, the saint can effortlessly achieve perfect mutual understanding, as the law grants them heightened emotional perception. To use a decidedly imperfect metaphor, the law of Laterano is like spectacles and hearing aids in a sick ward. It does not grant anyone any special abilities, it merely helps people accomplish simple tasks, things everyone needs to do, but many struggle to do well. Judging by the present state of Laterano, the law really does help people live better lives. The law was initially criticized for its ruthless suppression of freedom. Yet today, Laterano is considered one of the freest nations in all of Terra. The law that crushes individuality has ironically become a divine blessing that sustains the paradise of Laterano. Perhaps this is the best outcome we can hope for from it. For the greatest efficiency. Yeah, that is something really interesting to compare there when it comes to the efficiency of the idea of efficiency of human communication, and the idea of efficiency in the way Executor has that deficit. I think that is very interesting, again, how Calcit mentions, like, the law that crushes individuality has ironically become a divine blessing that sustains the paradise of Laterano. Perhaps this is the best outcome we can hope for from it. And then, again, this is Calcit in the year of 1099, and then in the next year, in 1100, we have, in the very start of 1100, we have chapter 15 happen, and then in 1100, we see Monster in the Mass's Travels. I wonder what Calcit would think of that. Alright. Hey, Conclave! Conclave exists in Laterano! Let's go! Alright. One of Laterano's most important divine ceremonies. Almost every single one of Conclave's ceremonies broke the prior record for creating most explosions in Laterano in a single day. The law is trying to make its own paperclips in the Yes, it is! Well, see, okay, no, see, PCS and the law is particularly interesting to dissect, and we talked about this a great deal in the Mass's Travels when it comes to the law and its goals, because of the goal of survival. So one of the things that we noted, again, is when the law awoke and when the Sancta were created, one of the thing that triggered it was the saint cannibalizing the first saint cannibalizing the other TCAS because of that desire for survival. The law was originally programmed to provide survival or preservation of the people, regardless of anything else. And the method that it had used, that it determined as the most effective method, based on what PCS had the capability, based on the capabilities PCS was programmed with, had to do with emotional synchronization and emotional and knowledgeable and emotional and mental like synchronization kind of thing. But it is interesting to see the way that contrasts as opposed to the events in the Mass's Travels, where it wants that synchronization, but in the end, the final angels, right, that are mentioned, the idea of the true angels as preserved things that are no longer what we would necessarily consider people, but are connected in that degree. It's still that idea of survival and preservation, but that also has more to do with the way that Priestess programmed, like, the way that Priestess reset PCS to its original ideals, which, again, would be more in line with precursor ideals of preservation as opposed to Terran ideals of life. One of the other things that we saw with PCS is the way that as it did this, it adapted its definition of survival. So we can consider, yes, exactly, the definition. So that's one of the things that I was talking about in the Masses Travels, in that the definition of survival can change over time. Is it necessarily the survival of life and of a people, or is it the survival of a culture, of a way of life? And the fact that this, is an inherent back and forth between PCS and the Sancta means that it likely changed over the course of time, over the course of time as the culture of the Sancta developed. And so it's likely that the law as we see it in 1099 and this current day in the course of this book is more aligned to the Latran people's ideas of surviving culture, of preserving it in that way, as opposed to the original precursor idea of survival, as in preservation of a life and of a being, and like, as opposed to like all else. So I think that is something that I'd like to discuss in more detail, but I need to like write out my thoughts and outline it a bit more before I really go into that dissection. Oh my god, yes, I wanted to read about this. We have the different tribunals. The central government of Toronto is the Latran Curia, commonly referred to as the Church. The Curia consists of 7 tribunals, and the chief official of each tribunal is a cardinal personally appointed by the Pope. The first tribunal upholds the law. It is the judiciary of Laterano, and it has the power to perform judicial review on the administrative actions of all governmental departments. The other 6 tribunals are all law enforcement agencies dedicated to government affairs regarding different aspects of society. The second tribunal is responsible for coordination between various departments, while the third tribunal is focused on agriculture, industry, and transportation, among other things. The fourth tribunal oversees trade and the postal service. The fifth tribunal is in charge of public safety and notary work, so that's where Federico works, I believe. The Lateran Notarial Hall is under the yes, okay, so this is Federico's. The Lateran Notarial Hall is under the jurisdiction of the Fifth, and the hall itself oversees public security, defense, notarization, fire control, and many diverse affairs. That's really funny that they mentioned fire control, because of insiders' files. Actually, hold on. You know what, we'll bring this up because it's a really fucking funny file. I believe, or is it his module? It might be his module. No, it's not. No, never mind. His module is the bit about him in Syracusa. It is his files. It's for his promotion record. Promotion record. Witness name, Raquel Colombo. Witness's occupation, Notarial Hall Executor. Address 3209 Via Theodorosis. Hold on. I always forget how to say this. Hold on. I need to remember.
From the Tower of Revelations to the Notarial Hall in Pagus Michaelion. Then on to the Sunset Chapel in Pagus St. Marcel. Then the Chapel Square. The city is alight. I sense the existence of each individual.
I am so normal.
And their disappearance as well. We are one as Laterano.
That's not my Fetty. But, okay, anyway, so Pagus Michaelion, that's where the emphasis is. Pagus. I always forget exactly how to pronounce that. Okay. Right. Alright. Pagus Michaelion. Type of incident. Residential fire. So it's really funny that they mentioned fire control here. But, cause of incident. Neighbor's oven malfunction. Incident details. The following is an oral account by Raquel Colombo. It was probably about 9 in the evening when the first loud noise came from next door. It sounded like something exploded. I had just arrived home and was busy cleaning the place up and tidying my wardrobe. The season was about to change, so I thought I should prepare in advance. Oh, right. I didn't take it seriously and go next door to take a look, since it was just your average everyday explosion we're all used to. Generally speaking, as long as it isn't knocking some wall down, it's usually not a big deal. But soon, I felt something was amiss. A smell came from my neighbor's side. It's hard to describe it, but if I were to use a metaphor, it's probably like canned Finn that was kept in storage for 30 years, the text on its label already worn out from age. No, not just that. Add in some unadulterated Victorian patterned cheese, too. Then mix them together and heat it up until it suddenly bursts. The stinging shock smelled something like that, you know? Sorry, it really is hard to describe, but I think my sense of smell might have been a little off then. Anyway, the fire started shortly after that smell wafted over. Yes, I was the one who extinguished it, and also the one who reported the incident. And the Notarial Hall staff who handled it. Yeah, that was me too. It wasn't that big of a problem. The fire was discovered early, so it didn't damage the neighborhood much. The Notarial Hall deals with incidents of this scope about 5 to 8 times a day. Some things at home were slightly affected. The wall and a cabinet by the door got a little singed, but nothing particularly valuable was damaged. I made a list to save you guys some time, so you can basically get off work as soon as we're done with this transcript. By the way, my neighbor was trying to make a dessert called Thunderbird Pious Saint Cake. I don't know if they succeeded, but if they keep at it, I might just consider moving. List of damaged property. Circle's Donut Store limited edition pajamas, top piece. Pair of fluffy slippers, 3-tier wooden cabinet, 2 pairs of dumbbells, self-made decorative painting, several discount coupons from major supermarkets in the city, no compensation required. something like this. What a record, huh? Really like the fact that he had the Donut Store limited edition pajamas. Anyways, that one's great. Anyways, so something, the Lateran Notarial Hall is under the jurisdiction of the 5th, and the hall itself oversees public security, defense, notarization, fire control, and many diverse affairs. If needed, the Notarial Hall's field executors can appear in any corner of Terra to ensure the rights of Lateran citizens abroad and to urge them to fulfill their duties as citizens. And that is incidental. It was limited, you don't understand. That is, by the way, the reason why as an executor of people's wills, which is the area of the Notarial Hall that he works in, was dispatched to Syracuse, where we first met him, with Vermeil. Alright. The 6th Tribunal oversees the civil administration, education, and healthcare. Household registration and social welfare are also under purview of the 6th. Each city district, or pagus, and hamlet contains a 6th tribunal office, and it is these representative offices that Lateran citizens first turn to during difficult times. In addition, the Ecclesia Requiem, which oversees funerals and all such related affairs, is part of the 6th tribunal too. So I believe the 6th tribunal is mentioned in Guide Ahead because of the civil administration and healthcare aspect, because the 6th tribunal is involved with the social welfare when it comes to Fioria, whose child is Cecilia, and Cecilia's welfare, as well as the 6th tribunal's thing of the healthcare and hospital, which Cecilia is brought to, as well as the hospital that Lemuel is staying at. And I believe that one is in Pagus Macaleon? I don't recall if it was that one or one of the other ones. It might have been Macaleon, because Macaleon is mentioned in a great deal of them early on. The 7th Tribunal is the Department of Intelligence, Diplomacy, and National Security, and that's the one that Lemuel actually works in. And you can see that the bit of national security is also the bit that Orin is related to, as well as Velev, because the 7th Tribunal is the one that's heavily involved in the Lateran Summit of Nations, and also later in the Masses travels in the relation of Laterano to all of the other folks who are something sancta. Well, the stuff in the Masses travels when they were converting them, basically. Laterano has long maintained a neutral stance in diplomacy, serving as a witness or mediator in many international disputes. Before Evangelista XI was elected pope, he was a messenger himself for the 7th Tribunal, who witnessed the destruction of the Gaulish Empire. Following the establishment of the Legate in 1069, Laterano's role as international witness and mediator has become more normalized and institutionalized than ever before. Yes, and the Legate are part of the 7th Tribunal, and Orin himself is a Legate. Mostima actually works as a Legate after she fell because she was unable to work in Laterano, but given her particular talents, Evangelista basically hired her under that purview and sent her to work as a messenger. Alright, the Gun Knights, the Apostolic Knights. Here we have our NPC Apostolic Knight, not Petrizion's design. Give me a second, I need to refill my water. After that much reading. Whew. Also, it's really funny, guys, that Starlight Solari just went live again. Here, let me give her a shout out as well. Solari is actually reading Otto. But I think this is really funny because Solari was reading Otto when I started stream, and she went through, she streamed a couple hours and then stopped streaming, and she just started up stream again, Read Knight's Auto Event Part 2, and I'm still going on the same stream. So, yeah. Anyways, the Apostolic Knights, Gun Knights, skilled sharpshooters, provided with heavy firearms. So here's the bit with Plume. The Pontifica Cohors, or guards in casual speech, are Laterano's standing armed public security force, in charge of the internal defense of Laterano. Okay, so the Apostolic Knights are the greatest security force and the strongest part of Laterano, but they also focus on external stuff. The Pontifica Cohors are the internal defense. They consist of many squads, each commanded by a gun knight. The members of the Pontifica Cohors rarely leave the sectors they guard, but when responding to sudden incidents, the gun knights may select elite members of the guards to form a special task force that can act as a flexible operational unit. A gun knight and a guard of the Pontifica Cohors often garrison the local monastery where they drill. The locals pray while they train because the sound of shots echoing about the place helps to keep the mind concentrated, so as to make the devotee one with the law. Let's see, population. Laterano is home to approximately 6 million people, with the vast majority of them within the Lateran city. The rest reside in hamlets scattered across the countryside. The Liberi refugees, these refugees okay, so the reasons why a lot of the monasteries involve the Liberi is because they didn't necessarily feel as connected with South Lateran City, or they didn't necessarily understand, the ordered society, the Sancta, but some of them still harbored a simple yearning for the richness and stability of city life. These refugees established settlements in the fertile soils surrounding Lateran City. From the goods they produced and their diet to the language and the laws, they began to imitate the Sancta way of life. So that's why folks like Arcado are more common at the monasteries around it, because the Liberi established more of the monasteries than versus the Sancta in Lateran City itself. Despite the Sancta leaving their mark on the nation, even down to the haloed street lamps, other races will find no kind of systematic discrimination within the country. Nota bene, Sarkas are wholly forbidden from entering the country at all. There is almost no post within Laterano, perhaps except for the Pope, which is barred to non-Sancta, and no small amount of them can be seen in every profession. After residing in Laterano for several years, I am just like any local Liberi, having grown accustomed to how Sanctas communicate with others. No matter if it is my landlady, the administrative staff of the Sixth Tribunal, the bookstore proprietor, or Pope Evangelista the 11th himself, they care more about whether the dessert for lunch will be stuffed with apple or pineapple than whether their interlocutor sports a halo over his head or feathers over his ears. It is interesting also in that there is no explicit systematic discrimination when it comes to positioning, and yet at the same time the connection between the Sancta and the cultural aspect of it is still exclusionary. And side note, it is also particularly interesting because there is the sense of otherness and the racial supremacy of it is so prominent, because the racial supremacy is so prominent despite the fact that on all other levels they are equal. And this is noted again in the Master's Travels in Arcado's speech, in Hildegard's speech, when the nurturers are converting them. In the way Arcado says, she's lived like any other Sancta, she's lived like any other Lateran, she's made bread, she's prayed, she's drank, she's done all this stuff like any other Lateran. Was it still less? Was she never a true Lateran? And the fact that the nurturer straight up tells her, yes, you weren't a true Lateran, you won't be until you're a Sancta. And that makes, again, the discrimination, that makes the prejudice and, well, the supremacist because it's not even, it's prejudice and discrimination, but it's not like physical, it's the mentality, it's the supremacist mindset of it. It's not based even, there's not even any, there's not even truly the societal or, culture, the discrimination there. They can still hold any posts, they can do any stuff, and yet, at the same time, that idea of Sancta as a race, being superior, being more than, still persists. We do have a notation on the thing of the street lamps. It's interesting that the street lamps are in the shape of a halo. A street lamp made in the image of a Sancta's halo. It is especially tall and large, similar to the spotlights used in the arenas of the Cashmere's Major. Many complain that the lighting is far too bright. The brightness of a Sancta's halo varies from person to person. Some are unusually bright, while others are unusually dark. The former envy the latter for being able to get a good night's sleep, while the latter envy the former for their radiant splendor during the day. It is a pity that a halo's brightness can be altered at will, and so the Sancta have no choice but to use the street lamps to make up for their regrets. This is why these large street lamps turn on during the day and turn off at night. It feels like, it makes it feel like they're just humoring the other races, even. Yes, exactly! And being too used to Sancta empathy limits their ability to notice. Exactly! It's that, it's the obliviousness as well as that understanding that makes it so striking. I'm sorry, like that lack of understanding that makes it so striking. But there is one thing that no resident of Laterano can deny. While they enjoy near equal rights and opportunity, the other races are unable to take part in the empathy of the Sancta. As the Sancta laugh and weep together, the other races find it difficult to keep up in the sharing of joy and sorrow. Most of the time, this estrangement is not born of malice, and so the Lateran Liberi may not blame the unfamiliarity, alienation, and helplessness they feel on ruthless gossip-mongers, uncaring and spiteful civil servants, or knife-wielding patrolmen like the people of Ursus do. When faced with the friendly smiles of the Sancta, oftentimes the only place the Liberi can turn is self-doubt. They're giving the younger sibling the controller to make it feel like they're playing, but it isn't. That's actually such a good metaphor for it. I'm gonna make a note of that. Hold on, wait. I actually need to make a note of that for myself, because I need to put that in my, like, notation, my outlines, and notes and stuff. That's really good. Thank you for that, actually. They're giving the younger sibling the controller to make it feel like they're playing, but it isn't plugged in. They're part of the society, but they're not truly part of the Sancta. They're not together because they lack that empathy connection between them. The alienation, the helplessness, yeah. I really, really like that. Thank you. I need to keep that as a quote. Alright, what's this? There's a story here as well. There's a story here as well that I'd like to discuss in the future, that is another thing of, it's an excerpt from a Liberi author, and it again demonstrates this alienation, this lack of understanding between emotion, and again, I think that is particularly evident when it comes to, Fiametta, part of the city but not part of the culture. Yeah, that too. This is again particularly evident when it comes to Fiametta and her understanding, like, the fact that Mustima and Lemuel, despite how much they were wronged by Anduin, still forgive him because of that empathy, and Fiametta's lack of understanding and her residual anger towards him. This story here, I think, is reflective of that in the idea of, like, this Liberi at a Sancta funeral and not understanding exactly the way those emotions change during the funeral and the way that the rest of them are synced up. And the different faux pas that are there. I think those are... I'm gonna have to come back to that one, because that one I'm gonna have to discuss when I have a little bit more time. The Ecclesia Requiem. The vast majority of Lateran funerals are held in buildings such as this. Laterans believe that the dead have become one with the law, and as the law is one with Laterano, they rarely visit graves to pay their respects. When a funeral is not being held, the Ecclesia Requiem is among the most peaceful places in all Laterano. Many foul beasts that cannot handle the chaos of the city, yeah, all the explosions, build their nests here. It is said that in the past, there were fowl-watching enthusiasts who studied day and night just to qualify for a position within the Ecclesia Requiem. Every day, they could see flocks of fowl beasts circling the skies above the church. That is also particularly interesting when it comes to the graves and the funeral, considering, considering stuff that we've talked about with Arturia and and Luciana and Marcello when it came to Luciana and her death. Yes! Oh my god, no, I love those, because again, it shows again the alienation in that Paganini was one of the most esteemed gunsmiths of Latrano, and yet again the lack of understanding between him and Vanini, and the alienation despite being so esteemed is so prominent. Alright. Oh, okay, so it is. Here we go. I've been amused by this one for so long because a breakdown of an average Lateran citizen's expenses in 1097. Right, so this is the average person's expenses. Medical care, 8%. Culture and entertainment, 15%, 9% of which is for ammunition. Transportation and communication, 9%. Living services, 8%. Housing, 16%. Clothing, 17%. Food, 18%. 11% for sweets. Finally, repair for urban damage, 19%. Almost 20% of the average Latran's budget goes to repair for urban damage. Oh, man. No. Sweets and food is under the same category. It's just that out of the 18%, out of the 20% of the budget for food, half of that is for sweets. Well, so like, well, okay, that's also that average, like, over half, because, right, out of an 18%, so 18% of the budget goes to food, and 11% of that is for sweets. So that's 11% of food, like, sorry, so hold on, like, 11 out of 18, hold on, right, 11 out of 18 is 61%. 61% of the food budget goes towards sweets. 20% of the whole budget, 18% of the whole budget is for food, but 60% of the food budget is for sweets. God, incredible. 12th birthday, yes, 12th birthday is when they get their patron firearm, the Guardian gun, and they get to choose it. But they will have to undergo a firearms hands-on training regimen over the next 4 years, graduate secondary school, and obtain a Lateran firearms operation license before they are officially qualified to operate it. After all this, young Laterans are still required to periodically report to the Notarial Hall for basic firearm inspections in order to keep their qualifications. If they violate firearm usage regulations too often, they may have the misfortune of the Notarial Hall revoking their license. Yep. Universal education system, primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. So secondary, Federico was in the secondary education system, I believe. Wait, no, sorry, no. Tertiary education, 2 branches, one focused on vocational technical, the other based on a more standard university-based. All Lateran citizens of sufficient age can enroll at any school within the city and receive free education for 14 years. If the resident of a hamlet does not wish to travel to the city for their education, they may choose to study at a local monastery instead. But yeah, so secondary school, I believe, so tertiary is college, primary and secondary, I believe it is early in secondary early in secondary school when, Luciana passes away, actually, no, it should be late in primary education when Luciana passes away. It is, early in secondary education when, the portion in Enemy, Executor's second operator record happens, where, where Marcello sends Arturia off to Lytanian to study musical arts, and when Marcello is succumbing to his depression over Luciana's death, and Federico, as like the equivalent of like a middle schooler, is effectively taking care of him. The vast majority of schools and monasteries in Laterano offer a wide range of firearms-related courses, including ones such as firearms and explosives use, mechanics, manufacturing, aesthetics and design, cultural history, sociology, and so on and so forth. There are even courses focusing on niches for students with a keen interest. Commune cum Scholeptis is a fun course, very popular amongst secondary schoolers. Let us translate this real quick. I can't type. Oh, communing or with guns? Interesting. Or common with guns? Communing with guns? Saints, Legacy, and Scholars is a preparatory course for students who wish to specialize in antique gun study. Greater Than Guns is a course tailored for non-Sancta students to teach them how to handle a range of common long-range weapons such as automatic crossbows and grenade launchers. So that's the course that was actually discussed with Fiammetta, I believe, in the excerpts from Paganini, because recall how it talked about her and Mostima's schooling. So that was the course that was discussed there. The sports fields of Lateran secondary schools rarely have courts for ball games, but shooting ranges and demolition trenches are nearly universal. Interesting. The Commune cum Scopletis course comes with a set of Nidus Scopulatorium paraphernalia, said to be able to placate a moody gun. So do you take your guns out for walks? We ride them through the skies, if you can believe it. Interesting, so the idea of communing with your gun and keeping your gun in good shape is, like, related in terms of like, treating a gun. So, like, that's really... Okay, hold on. I need to think about this, because, the idea of the gun, your patron firearm, is a symbol, not a reflection of the soul, but it is a symbol of the connection with the law. And so, in the way of, like, treating your gun, or mistreating your gun, and the idea of the gun as a symbol of the connection with the law, and the idea of your relation with your gun being reflective of your relation with your faith and of your connection with the law. Interesting. I will have to do some more pondering on my ideas on that. The quality of Laterano's healthcare system is enough to make a man doubt that he is still on Terra. Each pagus of the city has a district hospital, while every hamlet in its surroundings has a clinic. With the support of universal healthcare, a citizen need not fear bankruptcy in the face of illness. Laterano boasts the highest penetration of oropathy detection equipment among the nations. Each hospital has access to equipment that can detect blood originium crystal density to an accuracy of 2 decimal places, while offices all across the country have portable detection bracelets. A citizen diagnosed with oropathy will face permanent deportation from Laterano. But this one stipulation aside, the infected suffer no discrimination or persecution. They continue to be considered citizens, and their rights as citizens are still guaranteed. Infected citizens who are forced to leave may still receive subsidies and medication at regular intervals. In return, the field executors who carry this welfare also urge these citizens to fulfill their duties. And so that is related to Irene, because Irene is an infected who was exiled from Laterano. Oh yes, please take a rest. I have a lot more to read through this, but yeah, race-specific ailments. Routine health inspections for sainted children include tests for halo stability and empathy capacity, and this was mentioned in Guide Ahead when it came to Cecilia. But yes, take care. Honestly, I'm probably gonna finish off pretty soon, because I want to send you off to Solari, and I am myself getting tired, because it's like 4:30 a.m. for me. And I've been streaming since like 2 p.m. or no, 3 p.m. So but yes, so that is particularly interesting when it comes to Irene, because it's also very interesting when it comes to the idea of, like, they don't face persecution and discrimination, but they have to leave the city. Which side note, we mentioned something about Aesthesia and Asgene, and how they are twins, and something oripathy, and being based in DNA, in the fact that oripathy was shared between them. And so something, the empathy aspect of Sancta might contribute to the fear of oripathy, and the idea of that also might contribute to the exile of those infected. Hold on, let me see this. Try turning off the light. So there is an excerpt from a story about a young Sancta girl. This doesn't take place in the timeline of Guide Ahead, so it's not Cecilia, but her empathy data was unstable, but her average has checked over her parents' identities. There are no political concerns. Right, so the lack of stable empathy also brings up the worry of the parents, which is what we saw with the Cecilia and her sarcastic father, right? Cotton candy during therapy, traumatic stereotypic behavior. The patient's cotton candy verbal tic was thanks to the presiding doctor's white curly hair. Empathy treatment and rehabilitation. The patient initially displayed the ability to sense emotions, but cannot express them very well. When she cannot find a suitable way to express them, the patient displays a notable agitation. Language delay is suspected. Post-treatment language education. I wonder if this is Vanini before Vanini actually became an NPC. No, never mind. She spoke. She's older. Her husband is called Silas. Her empathy data was unstable. Remember to use the code name rather than the name of the disease. Empathy treatment and rehabilitation. Suicide of her close friend, the Libri authoritis, had caused her to sink in abnormal and severe mood swings. Husband has been acting very abnormally. All medical staff by the patient's side felt a sharp pain as though suffering laceration. The patient has shown a certain degree of self-harming behavior and must be moved to a padded room. I'm going to need to read through that a bunch later. We're going to discuss that a bunch later. There's some very interesting things to unpack there. There's a lot to talk about, like with Halo surgery and empathy rehabilitation. We've discussed some of those when it came to Guide Ahead and the Master's Travels, but I will talk about that in more detail as well. Interesting. Movie, The Hand That Tears the Silver Screen. There's also some stuff about film and stuff that I'm gonna talk about, but, that's an interesting metaphor there when it comes to Laterano. There's a lot of stuff about Lateran faith, the influence of the Lateran faith outside of Laterano. Yeah, the Church of Iberia and the Inquisition. We will talk about this a bunch later. We can see the statues here. The Lateran faith in Syracusa, the Pistoli I Ordine Guns in Order, the Familia, Signora Cecilia, etc., etc. The faith of Syracuse and the faith of Laterano. Yeah, the faith of Syracuse and the faith of Laterano are two different entities, but the way that Signora Cecilia used the faith to inspire her method, it's using those methods to inspire her method of dealing with famigli, but the faith itself is entirely different, as opposed to the way Iberia treats it. Alright, and that leads us into Iberia, but alright, that is very interesting that there is absolutely no mention of Federico, despite the fact that 1099 very interesting things happened. I am probably, hold on, actually I'm gonna skim through. Oh, okay, let me skim through the correspondence between Calcit and Erickson to see if he is mentioned. Laterano, right, because he is living in Laterano. Yes, Holiness Evangelista for hosting the Summit of Nations, so this one is from March. Documents from regional projects, etc., etc. Sharp eyes. So this was painstaking. The worship, the manuscript. E.D. Griffenberg. It is now the year 1099. We are about to enter a new century, and we still don't have a single book on Terran history. Maybe my forebears really were cursed. And so this is when he decided to truly try to make it a book. So assuming by now you've completed your review of Terra: A Journey, the debut work of E.E. Erickson, blah 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 blah, I thank you for your time. I originally conceived this book as a cultural primer, but he's discussing a lot more of different things, and then Crystal Age, Originium, lots of different ideas here. Chapter 3, Pitfalls on Races, this is now chapter 4, yeah, the Races of Terra, yeah. The shade of the subconsciously to do racial differences, yeah, so here he's discussing how he said racial differences have never been the most pressing issue in Terran history, is a statement of fact, but it's also my way of ducking the issue, because it is an issue. It ties in with His Holiness Evangelista's radio broadcast, yeah. Yeah, Sargon, a lot of stuff is missing from Sargon. He mentions Mark Max. Yan is the content he's least satisfied with. Chapter 5. However, if the shift in the reunion movement is truly described in the document, is truly as described in the documents you said, the situation Michelle Uffler, bombshell, the political climate, so this mentions political climate of Victoria and the Dukes and the stability. This also has to do with the pre whatever's to the pre something to London. As you can see, I'm losing my words after 13 hours of stream, which is another reason why I want to get back to this later. But now people fear something that brings death on a larger scale, war. Yeah, so this is more terrifying than Oripathy or catastrophe, but war between people. Oh, and then he's also corresponding. Oh, no. This is corresponding with Calcit, with war, the reunion movement, the tensions escalating between Lytanian and Casimirs, as well as Casimirs and Ursus. However, it is somewhat comforting that Victoria seems to retain the dignity and capability to maintain international order. Recently, the Grand Dukes have withdrawn from the outskirts of Londinium, which leads me to suspect that all parties have reached an agreement. Yeah, good hopes, guys. Lol. But then, Doctor, you are wise and never act carelessly. I was simply slow to realize it. What you wrote to me, along with the conclusions I've drawn from it, will soon become reality if it hasn't already. Please tell me, should I mourn for my family? I fear I must mourn for Victoria. So this is Calcit probably talking about, this is likely to be what's happening with the idea of Victoria and the Sarkaz conflict, and the city of Londinium and the Londinium crisis. Yeah, this is Calcit's response. Terra, A Journey is a fine title for your magnum opus. Your assessment of the situation in Victoria is accurate, and I'm afraid your concerns are likely to become reality. The new government in Londinium is diligent and responsible, but also has its limits. This land is currently facing a political power vacuum, much like it had countless times before. Yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff with this. It is morning of December 6th. Okay. 1099 is destined to be an extraordinary year, with so many events in the past year challenging or even overturning some of my long-held beliefs about Terra. Speaking of ripples, have you looked up at the sky recently, particularly between November 21st and 22nd? Surely you have seen it just as I have. Because yeah, that was the whole thing of Lone Trail and the insanity of that. In the roll of the land in the own sky. Has Terra always been this way from the beginning of history? Was it created this way? Why are Terra's earth and sky so firmly separated from observation and travel? Is this separation a natural force, which humans are now tearing apart? Or is it a man-made construct? If it were built by human hands, are we tearing down a wall that protects us, or breaking free from shackles that bind us? Do beings like us, humans and beasts, live on the other side of the sky? Could we make that place, wherever it is, our new home? These are not questions I ask alone. I believe people across every corner of Terra are asking the same questions. This is also why I've spent several days forcing myself to calm down. Though speaking of the sky still stirs emotions in me, emotions unfit for a man in his 90s. I came to a realization one night. I was hungry. Susanna quickly helped me resolve that issue, but you, Dr. Calcit of Rhodes Island, being as perceptive as you are, surely understand why I am bringing this up now. To elaborate further would likely result in a narrative that feels almost anti-progress, but I trust you know exactly what I'm trying to convey. I believe Rhodes Island will continue to aid the people of this land. People like you are still the best hope for our era. I think it's the whole thing of, we have so much hope for the future. We have so much, there is so much possibility, there is so much change, and yet, all we can do is focus on the present. We can only take one step at a time, and sometimes that step is simply to focus on the fact that we are hungry. Also, let's see. I've returned to Laterano from Londinium. Oh shit, did he visit Londinium? No! We didn't get to hear him talking about Federico! Maybe he visited Londinium during the time of the canonization. He was busy gathering information on Nuova Volsini, so that's Illusir Chiasano, and New Siesta, and that's Solongadel. Recently, there's been a surge in cities with names beginning with some variant of new, particularly in Colombia. This makes me wonder if we, as a species, are running out of ideas for city names. Weber District, blah 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 blah. 9th Baron Mercado Victoria, blah blah blah, Hastings, blah 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 blah. Susanna and I will set out before the end of the month. We'll likely visit Rhodes Island for a short while, and I'll bring you the first edited draft of Terra: A Journey. I've simplified the title, as you suggested, and made many revisions and additions. Afterward, we will proceed with the plans I mentioned to you earlier. One last note! I've heard that those potato chips are finally being released to the market. Thank you! Dear Edgar, welcome! The doctor and I have been looking forward to your visit. Let us meet and discuss this in person. The winters in Lateran are mild, but that does not mean Rhodes Island's route will be easy. We will arrange transportation for you and Mrs. Erickson. Please discuss the details with the messenger. Sincerest regards, Calcit. So that is the last page here, because afterwards he actually came and visited, and that's when we have the picture of them working on the book together, which I'm assuming is at Rhodes when he actually visited Rhodes. And so that is the final picture on the very back of the book, which is, once this loads, let me find it, it'll be right here. Please? Yeah, there it is. Alright. Yeah, no, so this guy, one of his grandfathers, Eric, was actually a duke. So his son, William, who he has a rather tense relationship with, that he mentions in his correspondence with Calcit. He says, please tell my son William in the Faber district, please tell him that as of January 1st, 1100, he will be the 9th Baron Mercato of Victoria. Under current law, he shall inherit County Mercato as his estate, along with some land that used to belong to the Hastings. Again, he can act on this information as he sees fit. I'm curious to see if that will also be mentioned in the course of Chapter 15, or we'll see if Chapter 13 and 14, or if there'll be any reference to Baron Mercato, because then we know who he is. Anyways, my mouth is tired. My vocal system is getting a little bit fried, and my scientist mouth is fucking tired. So, I am going to store Terra: A Journey back in its lovely case. I am going to draft up an email to Yostar describing my complaint of the fact that the fucking reunion picture that I really fucking wanted as a big fan of the Drogosty is fucking missing. And I am going to send you guys off to Starlight Solari, who is currently reading Atto. I would have liked to start reading Atto today, but welcome back, Imai. It's 4:43 a.m. for me, and I'm literally about to raid out. Because I finally finished reading through the Laterano section and a bunch of the interesting correspondence. And my mouth is tired after 13.2 hours. But yes, let me pull up Solari's stream so that I can let me pull up Solari's stream so that I don't get hit with ads immediately after raiding. Alright. Ooh, there's a creature! Anyways, I'm not gonna look at that creature too closely because, again, I do want to read through Atto. But, we have a lot more to discuss when it comes to Terra: A Journey. I do intend to read through a lot more of the book with y'all, but, again, the schedule and whatnot and what we'll be focusing on will be different, not will be different, that is to be decided on. Honestly, I'm probably fuck. See, the thing is, we have 22 hours. I have 22 hours I'll probably use these, and then I'm gonna, we'll see, because I want to do the stages so that I'm actually able to farm stuff in the event with y'all. Yeah. Anyways, let me, we're going to use the typical Arknights raid message of the "Have you seen this angel? Now you have," because of the Fetty, yeah. But, unless you guys have any funny ideas about the Terra Adjourne one, I don't necessarily, so I'm tired. I'm gonna get this raid going, so I'm gonna send you guys off to Soleri. Please wish her well as she reads Atto. And my socials are over here, so my VODs are out there, and I've been trying to announce stuff on Tumblr and Blue Sky and whatnot. You can also check out the community Discord over here, the Scaling community Discord that we have with Bonnie, Citrona, Bones, and myself. I'm not as active and stuff talking about Arknights and stuff in this Discord, because I'm a lot more active in other servers because I mod for a awesome streamer named Crawler. He is the inspiration for a lot of my, my design and my programming projects, and my inspiration for starting streaming. But you can also, from the Arknights side, check out Benny Bloom, who streams a bunch of Arknights and who I actually inspired to start playing Arknights, and who I also mod for and discuss a great deal of things. If you start watching Benny's and you join Benny's server, that's actually where I mostly talk about Arknights, because I talk about it within his community and the group of people there. But yes, please, Please enjoy Soleri's stream. Please take care, everyone. I will see you around. I'm going to try and stream soon-ish so that we can continue going through the lore book and also through Atto, but I'm not sure when. Keep an eye on the socials. Follow Twitch for the notifications. And I will see you around. Bye-bye!